speak for 5 minutes, whatever.
My name is Tim. I'm an addict. My clean date is the 24th of July, 1993.
Go on, Tim.
I'm very glad to be here today. It's always lovely speaking to a CA audience, not to disrespect any other fellowships, but we are terribly enthusiastic, and quite rightly so. That's the way we're supposed to be, with enthusiasm, of course, meaning, if you remember your Greek, God within. That's what enthusiasm means. Lack of enthusiasm, well, God might be in there, but he's tucked up in his little box. When God is let out of the box, that's when I'm enthusiastic. And Jenny asked for a topic, and I don't know why I thought of this. The thought crossed my mind. And I think there is a lot of thoughts that cross the mind. If you remember Fred's story which starts on page 39, a thought crosses his mind that a couple of cocktails with dinner would be nice. The thought, anyway, crossed my mind when Janie asked for a topic. She talked about carrying the message. So I thought, well, what better topic could there be than what is the message? It seems, on one level, self-evident what the message is. I was in a meeting many years ago, and our group was experiencing significant difficulties. So what did we do? We held a group conscience as though that was going to solve the problem somehow. And we got a checklist of questions from somewhere. One of the questions was something like, are we carrying our message? Tradition 5, the group carrying the message, its message, the message. And we went round the room, and everyone said what they thought the message was. And everyone said something different. So clearly, it's not self-evident what the message is. Now, in CA, we're hugely indebted to Alcoholics Anonymous, which graciously gave us its programme. I hope there won't be anyone from AA listening to the recording afterwards. Our ears will be burning. But they didn't wash their hands before they gave it to us, which means the programme that was given to us, it had all sorts of artefacts from the AA fellowship. And a lot of what one hears in meetings is not necessarily in accordance with what the book says. Sometimes people say, well, you come into recovery and you must just shut up and, what do they say, shut all the way up and sit all the way down and something like that. I can't remember the full, it's not an official slogan, so I haven't memorised it. Now, if you tried to absorb every single thing you heard in a meeting and then go out and implement it, you'd be like someone who gets into a taxi and then keeps giving the taxi driver different destinations. You'd end up nowhere. One simply can't do that because it's so full of contradictions. What one hears in meetings is so full of contradictions. So how do you know what is right, what is wrong, what is real, what is not real? Someone asked me the other day, is it true that there are as many ways to work the programme as there are people in recovery? Now, I know the answer I was supposed to give was, no, there is one sacred way. Now, of course, there are as many ways to work the programme as there are people in recovery. The trouble is, some of those work and some of those don't. And it really matters. It really matters. And the reason it really matters is because of something which is referred to in the big book unhelpfully as the physical craving. Now, you say physical craving to someone who's not had it explained, and they'll get all muddled because the words are misleading. Physical craving makes it seem as though what is going on is somewhere in your body. I don't know, in your left knee you feel this terrible urge to have a drink. I never felt it physically, I don't think. There was simply something going on in my mind that said, I want another drink, or I want another this, or another that. I'm addicted not just to alcohol and substances, but there are other things too, which I certainly won't be mentioning with a microphone in my hand. Those behaviours have stopped. I just want that to be clear as well. So I wasn't aware of the compulsion to keep doing whatever it was as a physical phenomenon. It felt entirely mental, because it came in the form of, I want another da-la-la-la, whatever it was. So it didn't feel physical. And also, it doesn't match the phenomenon, the thing that I experience, doesn't match the word craving. And I always give this example, so if you've heard it before, I apologise, but I think it's the best one. If you work in an office around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone starts to tiptoe over to chocolate biscuit corner, moving like zombies, hoping no one will spot them. And they go and have one. You see them munching the little biscuit, and they might go and have another one. But once they've had a couple, they're done. That is a craving in an ordinary sense. You're sitting there, the desire hits you, you go and consume whatever it is, you're satisfied, and it's over. And it starts with desire, and then it moves to consumption, and then satisfaction. Desire, consumption, satisfaction. The craving that is described in the doctor's opinion is backwards to that. It starts with consumption. Anyone who's taken a drink or taken a substance or simply, I mean, if it was sex addiction, someone looks at you a particular way and you're off. You were fine until the little chemical spurt went on in the mind. And now something has been triggered. It starts with consumption, and the craving follows the consumption. And then you have more consumption. And it goes craving, consumption, round in a circle forever, until you fall off your perch. If I were to use today, I might carry on forever, or for as long as I'm on this mortal plane. That is why it really matters if I understand what the message is, if I am doing the programme correctly. In other words, in a way which is definitely going to work for me, because this could be my only shot. It's no good saying, well, if I make a mistake, I'll come back. If you're lucky, because the person I turn into when I'm using has no intention or desire to be the person standing up here today. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Dr. Jekyll takes the potion, becomes Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde does not want to become Dr. Jekyll again. It's a one-way street. Providence might bring me back, but it won't be common sense or intelligence or rock bottoms. You can have rock bottoms galore and not come back. So this really matters. The question really matters. What is the message? Now, fortunately, what we have in the history books, as it were, if anyone has at home a 3rd edition of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous in the hard copy, on the paper flyleaf, which people would habitually throw away, is the last reference in AA literature before it was eliminated, which answers the question, what is the message? And it says the message is the first 164 pages of the Big Book. Now, I was at an Al-Anon meeting many years ago, and in Al-Anon what we say is that we work the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now that's true in a sense, but the 12 steps are stripped of their original source material because the big book is not used in Al-Anon. It was delisted as a piece of conference-approved literature. And so Al-Anon has developed its own approach to the steps based on the simple wording. Do we have them up here somewhere? Yes. So based on the simple wording, they've devised their own set of steps. So it doesn't really reference the big book at all. And I remember hearing a woman in a meeting who said that she'd done her step 5. The exact nature of her wrongs was all of the wrongs that had ever been done to her. And now, I think it's actually a beneficial exercise to go through and just acknowledge things have been a little bit tough and why. They're a perfectly valid exercise. But she was not aware that that was not the original intention of what was in the book. And one looks at those steps, those, I'm told, I haven't counted them. I know at least 3 people in the room will now count them. 200 words in the 12 steps up on the scroll. But they aren't the steps, in a sense. In the 3rd edition, in the forward to the, I think it's the forward to the 3rd edition, it says something like the 12 steps that summarise our programme. They're just the headings, they're not the content. The content is the contents of the book. Now, this solves all sorts of problems. So one of the things I'm one of those people that continues to take personal inventory in a little bit of a serious way. So I don't just do the instructions on pages 84 to 88. It says in step 12 that we continue to practice these principles, i.e. this whole shooting match, the whole show, in our whole lives, in every part of our lives. So there are times when I go back to the step 4 instructions on page 67. What were my mistakes? Where was I selfish? Where was I self-seeking? Where was I dishonest? Where was I afraid? Where was I to blame? What are my faults? What are my wrongs? And I apply those questions systematically to each area of my life, and I do that once a quarter. This works very well. It takes a couple of hours. It's not a great big production number. It's simple. And the question is, what step am I working? Is this step 10? Is this step 11? I'm doing the instructions from page 67, and that comes in step 4, so I'm doing step 4. You never need to worry about what step something is, what page is the instruction on, and which step is that in. That just tells me the answer. Now, some things I say might be at odds with what you think. I'm just laying that down as a slight possibility. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to tell you, when I read the book, what it seems to say to me. And sometimes I change my mind about what I think it's saying. So I might change my mind on... I'm going back to my home group later on today. It's safe, when no one can follow me. And on the way back, I may well change my mind about anything. So there's no need to take issue with anything. But I just wanted to set that out as a little bit of a health warning. So what does the big book say about alcoholism? Essentially, it gives me 3 aspects of alcoholism. It tells me how to diagnose myself as an alcoholic. And it tells me what the prognosis is. If I don't arrest the alcoholism, where is it going to go? And then it tells me how to treat it. So those are the 3 big topics. And when I joined 12-step recovery, I just fitted straight in with how everyone else was doing it. The fellowship came first, the meetings came first, the sharing came first. I think this is quite right. One needs the human touch, one needs to hear. As it says, there are 42 stories. We hope you pause when reading one of them, having dismissed the other 41 as having nothing to do with you. We hope you pause when reading one of them which somehow slips under the radar, and they hope one is going to identify with it. That's why big meetings with 30, 40 people can be quite good, because hopefully one person will say something that the newcomer will identify with. They won't identify with everyone. So I went to meetings, big range of people, and the big topic was why I drank. And when people relapsed, they explained why they relapsed. And there's a lot of discussion. I did it along with everyone else. I felt like this, and so I drank. Or I drank in order to da-da-da-da-da. Or I drank on feelings of da-da-da-da. And this was the environment I grew up in, and this explains my alcoholism. Now, this has a terrific plausibility, and it certainly matches my experience, the experience as I felt it at the time. But how I experience things is not necessarily how they are, and that's where alcoholism is really tricky. It tells me right from the beginning of the doctor's opinion, the alcoholic cannot differentiate the true from the false. So I'm not a reliable witness. You don't want to call me to the stand to testify, to explain a damn thing until I've really recovered and I can see with horror the truth of what was going on. Now, that sort of feelings theory, which I absolutely fell for, hook, line and sinker, because it seemed to explain everything, and it does have a degree of apparent plausibility. It didn't explain all sorts of things. It didn't explain why almost no one else in my family was alcoholic. There's one alcoholic in my generation. Of 5 great-grandparents, none of my grandparents, neither of my parents, none of the cousins. There's the odd addict here and there, and some people, there are some very strange people. But not alcoholic, but all messed up emotionally and psychologically in exactly the same way as me. We're same genetics, same upbringing, same environment. I'm alcoholic, and they're not. And you go to meetings and you think, my God, there are so many different types of people here. What, everyone's individual experiences explaining it? That doesn't make any sense. Didn't make any sense to me after a while. It left too many unanswered questions. And I'm going to say something so heretical. I hope there aren't any snipers in the room. Bill W. wrote some brilliant stuff for a book, for the Grapevine magazine. And those writings over the years are collected in a book, The Language of the Heart. And in one of those, he publishes a letter from Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychiatrist, who said that the alcoholic in drinking alcohol is at some low level seeking union with the divine, union with God, because alcohol seems to do things for us, and drugs and other behaviours seem to do things for us that they don't seem to do for other people. And I know exactly what he means, but I don't think it's right, and I'll tell you why. If you sit around for long enough and look at the truth of the experience, a different picture might emerge. And what's true for me may not be true for you, so just remember that as well. When I was growing up, my general feeling of the world was that it was an endless blanket of greyness. But as if that greyness was blanketed across the sky so there was no light coming in. And then occasionally there would be these little pinpricks in the blanket, and I'd see light coming through from the other side, light coming through from a realm which lay beyond. So I was, as a child and teenager, I was a classical musician, and there were certain performances, often in orchestras but in other situations where I had, looking back now, spiritual experiences. The self it felt as though the self was entirely dissolved, and I was completely present for this extraordinary experience. And the remarkable thing is, when I hear certain pieces, Dvorak's Wind Serenade is a wonderful piece, but it does a different thing to me than it does to other people, because I've got that memory of it gave me a glimpse of eternity. It gave me a glimpse of something that will survive even if the planet blows up. So it is not true to say that alcohol was the first time that I experienced something transcendental, that I experienced something beyond the greyness of materiality. I'd experienced it before. Now, I had an experience just a few weeks into daily drinking. I was 17, and it was a Saturday morning, and I had school on Saturday morning, and I was a musician, I was a performer. And I'd had an absolute skinful the night before. I was completely stocious, I behaved badly, I was sick as a dog. And I woke up on the Saturday morning and I went to something, and I was supposed to be preparing for a performance. I just couldn't do it. Now, in that moment, I wasn't like, but wait, hey, I've got alcohol, so it's fine. I was so unhappy that alcohol already was clearly taking away one of the few things that gave me an escape out of the awfulness of everyday life. And yet in that moment I thought, but there's no fighting it. If this is the way it's going to be, I know I'm going to be drinking every day. If this is the way it's going to be, so be it. And what alcohol did for me, of course it's a thrill, but it's like a base animal thrill. And once the addiction really took hold, what it was relief that the craving had stopped. Grady O.H., who's a brilliant speaker, one of the angriest people I've ever encountered in recovery, even angrier than me, which is such a relief that I'm not the worst person I know. But she says, you'll only experience the mental obsession to have the first drink and the compulsion to have further drinks if you resist the impulse when it arises. If you just give in to it, you'll never experience what it's like. And so the effect of alcohol, the effect of drugs, it was partly this low base animal thrill and partly the relief of finally giving in after resisting the temptation. It's as though when addiction wants me, what it does, it pumps poison into my system and tells me a drink or a drug is the only antidote to the poison. It's not doing anything for me, and it never did. Right from the beginning, it was compulsion. If you see a politician, and the politician is saying some very convincing, persuasive things, and all the arguments make sense, and you're like, absolutely, you know what, I understand what this chap's saying. And then you discover there's a scandal, because it turns out he's been paid by some lobby to say those things. Immediately, everything that he said is now under suspicion. If it's true and correct, it's only by accident, because he was going to say that, because he was paid to. The whole point of alcoholism, I did not understand step one for the longest time. I hope I've got a grasp of it now. I didn't understand it because the book said we were drinking against our will. And I thought, I never did. Every drink I ever had seemed a perfectly good idea at the time. How was that against my will? I can tell how because I never woke up the next morning wishing I'd drunk more than I'd drunk. I never woke up wishing I'd taken more substances. I never woke up wishing I'd got into more trouble. Full of regret the next day. And my fantasies about what it would be like never matched the reality. So there's something fishy going on here. What the book proposes is that I was acting under compulsion. If I'm acting under compulsion, anything I say is not to be believed. Anything I tell myself is not to be believed. Now, right at the end of my drinking and using, I started to realise with some horror, I desperately wanted to stop and realised I couldn't. I tried and failed and tried and failed. And the drink was just, it was like drinking poisonous water. I hated the taste, and it was, if you drink enough, it's going to physically paralyse you. Your mouth doesn't work, your body doesn't work. My body was not working, I was slumped, unable to do anything but lift the bottle, and that was it. I hated it. And I realised I was acting under compulsion, that there was a parasitic being inside me, the addiction, and it was calling the shots, and it was in charge. The line in the big book, alcohol was my master. As soon as that started to happen, its days were numbered, because the final shred of pride that I had would not let me go on to the bitter end. I thought there has to be something you can do about this. If you were your addiction, how would you keep you using? You'd convince you that you were acting out of your own free will. An agent who's seeing a situation and discovering that drugs are the solution to the situation and going and using. And that is the lie that addiction told me. That it was doing me good, that it was doing anything for me. It never did a thing. It's a trickster from start to finish. And if ever you doubt that, if, God forbid, your best friend relapses, you hear all of the lies and you know their lies. You hear the person in the weeks and months preceding the relapse. And you hear how they reword, they rephrase the past to make drink appear like it's the only valid option. And you're like, this is psychotic. The addiction gets to work by twisting my mind to make drinking or using or acting out in some other way the only viable option. And when you finally wake up, I never want to go back to that. What is the solution? The solution, you know, when you change mobile phones in some way, or you want to improve your service, you've got two options. You can either buy a bolt-on, or you can just change the contract. The solution I found in 12-step recovery is, this isn't a bolt-on. People talk sometimes about, I haven't got enough time for my recovery stuff because I've got life over here and recovery over there. Recovery, or rather the 12-step program, is not a thing that I go and do, which I have to bite bleeding chunks out of my everyday life to go, and I don't have to sacrifice my everyday life to do the recovery things. The recovery things are a method by which I do my everyday life. Now, just a tiny summing up of step one. It's like a hostage taker. I'm just bumbling along, and the hostage taker grabs me with the gun, and now the hostage taker is in charge. And the hostage taker, the hijacker grabs me and turns into a hostage taker. The hostage situation can go on for years. Out of nowhere, I'm suddenly in the grip of something else. I can't get my way out of that. No tricks or tools of the program can do that. the nature of the solution as it comes through in the big book, you look at Bill on page 154. He wants to drink. He's in the Mayflower Hotel. He's in a terrible situation. And he hears the, as it's called, the gay chatter coming from the restaurant at the end of the hall. And he realizes he's on thin ice, the insidious insanity. And he physically turns in the corridor and walks away. He automatically takes the right action. And as he's taking the right action, right thoughts start to occur to him. And he says, but what about those other alcoholics? If he drinks, those people he might have helped will not be helped. And after these things happened spontaneously to him, he didn't say, I thought it through and decided to turn it. He just did it. And then it says his sanity returned. Sanity returning is almost at the end of the story. Something comes into him. A miracle is an intervention in the ordinary course of affairs by something from the realm beyond. That's a good working definition that was given to me. What I'm promised with the programme is an intervention from God at just the right moment. And I've experienced that. I was a year and a half in, and I was walking past a pub, and the door opened, and this sort of beery, smoky fug came out. It was February. This warm fug came and hit me. And I had this moment of, oh, what a relief it would be. And then I found my legs moving me along the road. I didn't have to think to tell my little feet to go left, right, left, right. I observed that this was happening. So the reaction to alcohol, the temptation to drink, the impulse to drink, that impulse without God will simply convert into action. Recovery doesn't promise I won't have those thoughts. It promises that when I have those thoughts, a divine intervention takes place. It sounds dramatic, but it is precisely what it is. It's no more and no less than a divine intervention. Its repetition doesn't water down its significance. The fact we have, as it says in the book, a wholesale miracle. Miracles are supposed to be once in a while. We found a system of manufacturing the miracle-producing mechanism on an industrial scale. And what we have in this room is just the tip of the iceberg. But it is a miracle. Now, to have that protection from God 24 hours a day, I need to be in God's service 24 hours a day. When I wake up in the middle of the night and, what's the phrase, my head goes, it's inelegant English, but you know exactly what I mean. Sometimes only those basic phrases will do. My head goes. With enough training, my mind now automatically just recites and rehearses prayers over and over and over, and I fall asleep. And if I can't fall asleep, if I'm really wide awake, I put the light on and I read spiritual literature until I'm too tired to do any more, and I have another go, and as I'm trying to sleep. And I've had that when I'm physically very ill and very weakened against the onslaught of my own mind, and I'm given that defence. 24 hours a day. So recovery is not something I do over here and over there. It is an entire method. And it's wonderful in Bill's story where he says about his friend Ebby Thatcher, who carried the message to him, that he was much more than inwardly reorganised. His roots grasped new soil. Now, in a sense, although there was plenty wrong with me when I got sober and clean, there was nothing wrong with me. There was something wrong with the soil in which I was potted. I needed to be repotted in new soil, and then gradually the new soil would flush all of the problems out of the system. Now, this is tremendously good news, because if you come into recovery with the level of antisocial behaviour, incapacity to do anything practical in the world except decline Latin verbs, which will not get you a job. I couldn't get on with people. I couldn't have ordinary conversations with them. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't cope with ordinary everyday events. Tiny little situations would turn into, in my mind, crises of such proportions I had to take myself off to bed, because I simply couldn't face these things. Those problems, which, as I've said before, furrowed the brows of very highly paid professionals as they wondered what they were going to do with me. Those terrific problems. If I thought I had to solve those problems by peeling the layers of the effing onion for the rest of my life. I wasn't going to swear, but there we go. I'm allowed one. You know what happens if you peel onion? You know what you find underneath? More onion. And once you peel the final layer, what do you have? Nothing. There you go. What did someone say that one earlier? If I recycled from someone else's talk. If I had to do work on myself, Jesus, I would not be here. It's too much. I knew it was too much. Whereas the prospect of being repotted in new soil and just letting the thing take its own natural course, I can handle that. I just needed a little bit of patience. Now, if you try and have your roots potted in two different pots at once, you'll end up in neither pot. If you're currently living a selfish, materialistic life and it's working for you, crack on. Pardon the expression. But don't try and mix and match materialism and a spiritual life. It'll burn you alive. Best to just give up. And the best... No, seriously. When a sponsee says, I'm on top, like a new sponsor, a prospective sponsor, and you're interviewing them and they're auditing you, you know those situations. And they say, there's one more thing. And you say, what's that one more thing? You know what's going on. I'm having suicidal feelings. You're like, oh, thank God, there is hope for this one. Because you've come to the end of the road, you're out of ideas. Very good. So if you're going to die anyway, you'll put your back into this. If you still have an investment in your existing life, good luck. Just come back when you're so done, you can't even be bothered to argue with me. I mean, frankly, the sensible ones know that they're not going to get very far, but some still try. But the easiest people to carry the message to are the ones who are 17 minutes from suicide. Exactly what it says in chapter 7, that call on him when he is jittery. Wait for a lucid interval. He's more likely to be receptive when depressed. If you've got any cards in your pocket, come back when you have no cards in your pocket. And when you look at what the programme says and you say, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. It's the only way. Give up. Drop, like with dogs, drop. Drop. Someone said to me once, why are you still talking? I had some problem. They said, this is the point at which you should be listening and taking notes, not talking. As someone said to me in a step 9 once, I said, how has this affected you? And she said, we've met your kind before. I thought it was going to be some great spiritual moment, but it was. I was boring. And when I'm unhappy, I'm boring. Because I'm unhappy just like everyone else. There's a line at the beginning of Anna Karenina where Tolstoy says something like, happy families are all happy in the same way, and unhappy people are all unhappy in their own particular way. I think it's the other way around. The unhappiness is so desperately predictable. If you've heard hundreds of step fives, and I've heard hundreds of step fives and sponsored hundreds of people and heard the inventories of many others, they're all the same. We know how to finish your sentence because there aren't many sentences. And we've had the same sentence. So to simply give it up. And what does life therefore look like? Let's do a whistle-stop tour of the remaining steps. What step 2 says to me is that if I remain trapped thinking that I'm a physical body running around a physical world, there is no way to have hope in that without significant levels of delusion and substances to prop it up, because one knows one's going to die at some point. So what is it all for? It all seems pointless. The teenagers who say it's pointless are right. You don't cheer them up with prospects of what happens if they get good A-levels. No, they're absolutely right. Now, you might want to get good A-levels just because you'll need to pay some bills, but that's not the point. There is something more, and chapter 4 is brilliant on the existence of the something more. And I dare say the next thing, because Sandy Beach said it, so if he said it, I can say it. The first few chapters of C.S. Lewis's book, Mere Christianity, if you're wondering whether there is something beyond the material, that settles the matter forever. His book Miracles as well does the same thing. This is a digression. Back to the book. Step 2. This has worked for you, therefore it will work for me. Very, very simple. I'm not supposed to understand what lies beyond. I just have to recognise that there is something, and that beyond can supply me with every piece of knowledge I need about how to live and the strength to do it. Those are the only 2 commodities I need from God: direction on what to do and strength to do it. Step 4, I've kept it very, very simple for the last couple of years, and I haven't lost any sponsees in the middle of step 4, and that's not nothing. So I keep it very simple. It's a moral inventory, not a psychological inventory. What did you do? What did you think? Move on. Don't repeat yourself. You're done. Good. Read it out. Read it out to 3 more people. 3 more people? Yes, 3 more people. Read it out till you're bored. They'll be bored, but read it out till you're bored, until you see from their bored voices, bored faces, and hear in their bored voices how boring you really are. Once you're really bored, you're like, I just need to be this, and then you gesture generally towards yourself. This needs to go. Step 6 and 7. The way I had been living had not worked, which is why I was here. When did I think my plan was going to kick in? One cannot do anything without a guide. The guide is either the ego or it's God. It's never me on my own. When I think I'm doing something on my own, I've got the ego as my secret advisor, which is covering its tracks, speaking in my own voice, convincing me that every thought I'm having myself. I'm not having those thoughts. It's having those thoughts, broadcasting them at me. I'm receiving them and thinking I'm having them. I'm the receiver of the thoughts. Once I recognised that, there was no fight. There was the choice. Who's going to be a better guide? God or the ego? Very simple question. It's not a fight between me and God. It's a choice between the ego and God. That's what came through in 6 and 7. 8 and 9, get on with it, do it quickly. Just contact them, apologise, move on, get a little bit clearer on the step 8 with someone who's sensible and has their feet on the ground. But 10, 11 and 12, my day is very, very simple. I don't manage anything in my life except the tasks of the day. Show up for God in the morning and say, please direct my thinking because it needs directing. Please divorce my thinking from self-pity, self-seeking and dishonest motives because I've remarried the ego overnight, so I need to be re-divorced. I've trotted off to some metaphysical Vegas, to one of those dreadful Elvis chapels. And I need to be cellularly separated from the ego every morning. And my only concern is, what do you want me to do today? And then I do it. And just a couple, and that's it. There's a lot of recovery stuff in my life. There are some other things too. But as a result of this, in the last 25 years or so, I haven't had to do anything to get work or get money. The calls just come in. I simply don't understand how. And I remember the moment I said to God, I don't care. You take my life. I'm done running it. I literally don't care what I do for the rest of my life. You take charge of it. He did. You can't take it back. I turn my will and life over every morning and I take it back 100 times a day. You do not have the power to take that back from the hands of God. He's far more powerful than that. It's in his hands. You might, in a delusional way, try and stray off to the side, but you'll be burned alive if you do. But don't think for a moment you've snuck into his study and cracked the lock of his desk and retrieved your will and your life. You haven't. There is something else going on there. So either you trust God or you don't, and I do. Thanks for listening.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Right, okay, we're going to go for a break now. It's back at 4 o'clock, please. I'll let you just go.